good morning. So, by the way, my name is Alan May Vargas, and I'm going to report the judicial branch for today's video. Okay, so our first lesson is the Philippine judiciary and its function. So, what do you mean by judiciary branch? So, judicial branch means holds the power to settle controversies involving rights that are legally demandable and enforceable, no? So, the Constitution defines judicial power as the power to interpret and apply laws. So, the judicial branch is considered as a supreme arbiter. So, what do you mean by supreme arbiter? So, supreme arbiter is a person or organization that has official power to settle disagreement. So, or the judge and mediator of controversies and disputes on laws and the rights of the citizens. So, in terms of governance, the judiciary decides on the validity, legality, and constitutionality of newly approved laws. So, should these laws or rules be considered unconstitutional, they might undergo change or replacement. So, the judicial also decides on policies which are contested between the two branches of government. So, because of this important role, the judiciary often holds itself separate from the workings of the executive and legislative branches in order to maintain its objectivity and ensures that it is free from bias or undue influence. So, next is the Supreme Court. So, judicial branch of the Philippine government is embodied by the Supreme Court. So, the Supreme Court means the highest court in the land, and it supervises all the other courts in the country. So, the courts of the Philippines are empowered to hear legal cases, render judgment on them. So, in particular, courts exercises the power of original jurisdiction. So, original jurisdiction means it exercises original jurisdiction. Cases are directly filed with the CS in the first instance, passing through any of the lower courts. No, so the courts in the Philippines are empowered to hear legal cases and render judgments on them. So, which means they can hear a case for the first time. So, all courts from the lower courts are up to the Supreme Court. So, possess the power of original jurisdiction. So, higher courts have the power of appellate jurisdiction. So, what do you mean by appellate jurisdiction? So, appellate jurisdiction includes the power to reverse or modify the lower court's decision. So, possesses the power of original jurisdiction. So, higher courts have the power of appellate. So, which means that they are able to review and evaluate the decisions made by the lower courts. So, the Supreme Court exercises jurisdiction in cases involving the constitutionality of laws, treaties, and executive agreements, as well as the constitutionality and application of President decrees, proclamation orders, and other executive pronouncements. So, it exercises original jurisdiction on cases involving ambassadors, ministers, and consuls. So, the Supreme Court has appellate jurisdiction on cases involving question on taxation, criminal cases with the penalty of life imprisonment or higher, cases involving questions of law such as constitutionality of ordinance or regulations, and cases where the jurisdiction of the lower court is an issue. So, in addition to this primary function, members of the Supreme Court also comprise the electoral tribunals which investigate and hear cases on elections protests. So, these electoral tribunals are the President Electoral Tribunal, Senate Electoral Tribunal, and the House of Representatives. Representatives Electoral Tribunal. So, the power of the Supreme Court come with a set of limitation as well. So, the means of Presidential Electoral Tribunal, it means sole judge of all contests relating to the elections, returns, and qualification of the president. So, the Senate Electoral Tribunal means sole judge of the contest relating to the election of the returns qualification of the members of the senators. So the House of Representative Electoral Tribunal, the sole judge of the contest relating to the elections of the members of the House of the Representatives. So the Supreme Court is composed of Chief Justice and 14 associate justices. So among the 14 associate justices, one is recognized as the senior associate justice. So the Chief Justice President over the hearings conducted by the Supreme Court. So he or she certifies the decision made by the court. So the 14 associate justices is Clarence Thomas, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Ragan, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Antonio Carpio, Kaynato Puno, Estela Perlas Bernabe, Claudio Tenhanki, Teresita De Castro, Samuel Martinez, Florida Ruth Pineda Romero. So there are the 14 associate justices. So the members in the judiciary and the Supreme Court. So in order to become part of the judiciary, an individual must first be a practicing lawyer. So a practicing lawyer possesses a Bachelor of Laws or Doctor of Laws degree and have passed the nationally held by bar examinations which are administered by the Philippine Bar Association and supervised by the Supreme Court. So lawyers normally act as a legal counsels for parties that requires court hearing and judicial decisions whether for private or public institutions. So practicing lawyers may then become a judge of the Philippine court through rigorous appointive process. So this process differs depending on the type of court where a judge may be appointed. As already mentioned, Congress sets the qualification for membership in the lower court. So in the case of Supreme Court, each justice are appointed by the President. So, however, the potential nominees for appointment in this position are chosen and screened by the Judicial and Bar Council. So, the Judicial and Bar Council is composed of members from three governments branches, namely the Chief Justice, the Secretary Justice, and the member of the Congress. So, a retired Supreme Court Justice, a lawyer, professor, a member of Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and representative from the general public. So, the Judicial and Bar screens applicants for membership in the Supreme Court based on the four qualifications. So, number one is competency, which involves the educational background and legal experience of the applicant. Number two, integrity, which entails the background check and positive testimonies regarding the applicant. Number three, probity and independence, which signifies assurance and that applicant does not aim to serve private interests as Supreme Court justice. So number four, sound physical, mental, and emotional conditions, which would require favorable requests in psychological and general medical examination. So now the next topic is the Court of Appeals and lower courts of the Philippine Judiciary. So, the Supreme Court administers a network courts throughout the country that undertakes the task of exercising the powers and responsibility of the judiciary. So, the Court of Appeals is the second highest court in the country and it primarily exercises appellate jurisdiction over the decision of regional trial courts. So it also reviews administrative cases involving the Ombudsman and the Department of Justice, as well as the decision of government agencies exercising quasi-judicial functions, so including the Office of the President. Aside from this function, the Court of Appeals also conducts intermediate review of criminal cases where the penalty is life imprisonment or death. So before it is elevated to the Supreme Court, the court consists of one President Justice and 69 associate justices who are then grouped into 23 division of 3 justices each. So the lower courts in the country are organized on the area of jurisdiction. The regional Trial Courts or RTCs. This is categorized in 13 judicial regions from Luzon to Mindanao. So in turn, each provinces in these judicial regions, including Metro Manila, has RTC branches. So the number of RTC branches may depend on the size of population of the province of this or city. So number 2, the municipal trial courts or MTCs have jurisdiction over municipality of town. So if 2 or more municipalities are covered by an MTC, it becomes Municipal Circuit Trial Court or MTCs. In the case of the cities in Metro Manila, the MTCs or the Municipal Trial Courts are referred as Metropolitan Trial Courts. So next topic is specialized courts and quasi-judicial bodies in the Philippines. So there are also courts in the Philippines which have jurisdiction over cases and special nature. So the Sandigan Bayan is one of the specialized courts that hears in cases involving violations and committed by public officials, so including the President, Vice President, and Supreme Court justices and the Ombudsman. These cases relates to crimes such as graft, corruptions, bribery, and plunder, among others. The Sandigan Bayan is composed of one presiding justice, and 14 associate justices. So another specialized court in the Philippines is the Court of Tax Appeals, so which hears cases concerning tax collection. So there are also courts which hear cases on violation of Islamic law or Sharias. These courts are the Sharia District Courts or CDCs and Sharia Circuit Courts or CCCs. The jurisdiction of the courts encompasses the ARMM and the selected provinces in Mindanao such as Lanao del Norte, Sultan Kudarat, and Cotabato province. The CDC have judicial power equivalent to the RTC. On the other hand, the CCC have judicial power equivalent so that the MTCs possessing jurisdiction over more than one municipality. Aside from these specialized courts, the government also has quasi-judicial bodies or government agencies and offices that do not belong to the judiciary but perform some of their functions such as arbitration and settling of disputes and the rendering of judgment on certain cases. So, like for example, the body in the Philippines is the National Labor Relations Commission, so NLRC. So it is an office under the Department of Labor Employment that hear cases concerning employer and employee relations. So the NLRC has division which have jurisdictions over the different regions of the country. So another quasi-body is the Department of Agrarian Reform Adjudication Board or DARAB. So it is an office under the Department of Agrarian Reform that hears and resolves cases regarding the agrarian reform, such as cases involve disputes over agricultural lands and the evictions of land tenants, the determination of title or the owner of parcel of lands, and the verification of boundaries of a certain property. So the next topic is due process and jurisprudence. So all courts that constitute the judicial branch are expected to uphold due process at all times. So this means that the courts are mandated to maintain fairness in all judicial processes and recognize and protect the rights of an individual involved in a case, whether it is a complainant or the accused, the defendant, or respondent. So one way that the due process is ensured in the courts is through precedents and jurisprudence. So precedent refers to the principle or rule established by original or previous legal cases that then defines subsequent ruling in other cases. Jurisprudence, meanwhile, refers to the study of the nature of laws. precedent, and jurisdiction establish the rules and procedures of the courts to ensure due process when addressing legal cases. So, criminal procedures. The criminal procedure is a legal mechanism implemented in the investigation and prosecution of criminal cases. So, in the Philippine setting, the criminal procedure starts with the filing of the case or complaint. So, through a law enforcement body such as Philippine National Police or the NBI or National Bureau of Investigation, the specific investigative body then gathers evidence regarding the complaint, so including testimonies from witnesses and objects relevant to the crime or the offense. If the crime or offense is punishable by imprisonment for at least 4 years, 2 months and 1 day, the complaint is forwarded to a prosecutor for preliminary investigation. So the preliminary investigation entails not only a review of evidence regarding the complaint but also the interrogation of the accused. Through the preliminary investigation, it is determined whether there is sufficient ground to believe that a crime has been committed, that has crime by both the complainant that accused are considered before the procedure goes any further. So, one case is forwarded either the MTC or RTC. The presiding judge reviews the preliminary investigation report. The judge may dismiss the case if he/she finds sufficient grounds to proceed to trial. So, the accused is then arrested, placed in custody while under the arrest. So, the accused has the right to counsel and to bail. So, bail means payment given by the accused to secure his or her release from custody. So, provided that he/she appears before the court when required, along the other conditions that may be imposed by the court. So, upon arrest, the accused is now subject to the judicial process. So, this process starts with arraignment, where the accused is brought to court. So, the complaint is read and the accused is asked to enter a plea. So, if the accused pleads guilty to the offense, he or she will be penalized. If, however, the accused pleads not guilty, the courts proceed to the pre-trial phase, where the facts related to the crime are once again reviewed. So, the trial commences 30 days from the end of the pre-trial. During the trial, the prosecutor presents the cases, calls witnesses to give their testimonies, and presents the corresponding evidence of the crime. Meanwhile, the accused is given the opportunity to examine any of the evidence and testimony given at least him or her. So, the court then resumes and calls both parties to render the decision. If the accused is declared not guilty, he or she is immediately released. However, if the accused is found guilty of the crime, he or she becomes subject to legal sanction as determined by the court. So, the law provides a number of remedies to the accused, such as filing of motion for reconsideration of appeal, or a motion for reconsideration is a request by the accused for a new trial based on the following reasons. So, if the rights of the accused were violated, then they were irregularities committed during the trial. If there is newly discovered evidence that may affect the judgment rendered, an appeal means that the decision and the case may be elevated to the next higher court for review. So, the rights of the accused. Accused is granted several rights throughout the criminal proceedings and trial. So, these rights are based on the constitutional rights of the accused outlined in Article 3 of the Constitution that are further defined in the Rule 115 of the Revised Rules of Criminal Procedure. So, these are: number 1, the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Number 2, the right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation he or she is facing. Number 3, the right to personally defend himself and take part in all the phases of the criminal procedure. Number 4, the right to testify as a witness in his or her own belief. Number 5, the right to refuse to testify against him or herself. Number 6, the right to confront and cross-examine the witness against him or her at the trial. Number 7, the right to be guaranteed of the attendance of witnesses and production of other evidence in his behalf. Number 8, the right to be guaranteed of the speedy, objective, and transparent trial. And number 9, the right to appeal in all cases allowed in the manner prescribed by the law. So, the barangay justice system. So, judiciary is set in a place or a system of arbitration and dispute settlement in the barangays in an effort to provide communities the means to amicably settle disputes without proceeding to litigation in the court. So, this arbitration body is called lupong tagapagmayapa. The lupon is not a court of law and thus could not render judgment on legal cases. So, however, in the conduct of its mandate or to settle disputes among members of the community, it may give legal advice and render certain judgment on the facts and cases brought before it. So the purpose of instituting an arbitration and dispute settlements body is minimize the number of cases brought before the courts. So most of which be resolved if the respective parties engage in amicable dialogue. So if the parties succeed in resolving the dispute, the barangay certifies this rule statement of conciliation. So if not, this is the time when the lupong tagapagmayapa is authorized to forward the cases to the city or municipal court. With this, the complaint now becomes subject to criminal procedure already discussed. So that's all for today. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.